Noah Hale, the charming American resort owner, and Aisha Varma, the adventurous young Indian filmmaker, seemed like the perfect couple living a dream life on a private Bora Bora island. But behind the paradise of crystal blue waters and luxury villas, a dangerous secret was unfolding. What began as curiosity and exploration for Aisha turned into a deadly discovery that would shatter their marriage and expose a hidden world of surveillance, deception, and murder. In a story where trust became deadly and paradise turned into a trap, nothing was as perfect as it appeared. Noah Hale had built a life many people envied. As the owner of a luxury eco-resort near Bora Bora, he lived among turquoise water, quiet beaches, and guests who paid enormous amounts just to experience the paradise he called home. His social media displayed a lifestyle filled with expensive boats, private villas, and exclusive island events. When he announced his marriage to Aisha Varma, a 26-year-old Indian travel filmmaker, the world reacted with fascination. Their wedding photos appeared flawless, flower-lined walkways, shimmering ocean backdrops, and carefully staged moments that looked like scenes from a movie. To outsiders, it seemed like the perfect union of beauty, adventure, and success. After the wedding, Aisha moved to the island, convinced she was beginning a new chapter filled with creativity and opportunity. She planned to film a travel series that highlighted island culture, sustainable tourism, and untouched locations. For her, this was more than marriage. It was a chance to evolve as a storyteller and explore a world far different from her busy life in India. She imagined long days filled with filming, editing, and discovering new landscapes. From her first day at the resort, Aisha felt overwhelmed by the beauty surrounding her. Each morning brought sunlight that turned the water bright blue, and every evening ended with pink streaks across the sky. Noah introduced her to the staff, showed her the villas, and walked her through the private beaches reserved for special guests. Everything looked peaceful, organized, and carefully designed to impress. But even within the perfection, Aisha sensed an unusual silence. The staff maintained polite smiles but rarely made eye contact. Certain buildings seemed off-limits despite being part of the resort. Noah acted relaxed, yet his eyes watched her closely whenever she explored on her own. Aisha ignored these early signs, believing that she simply needed time to adjust. Aisha tried to settle into her new life, but the longer she stayed on the island, the more she noticed details that didn't fit the peaceful image Noah had created. The resort was beautiful, but it operated in a strangely controlled way. Staff members moved quickly from place to place, avoiding unnecessary conversations. Whenever Aisha attempted to ask casual questions about the island, about the resort's history, or about the older structures tucked behind the main villas, the employees shifted uncomfortably and excused themselves. Their reaction seemed less like shyness and more like fear. On walks around the island, Aisha discovered doors marked with fading signs, rusted locks, and warning stickers that looked decades old. Some storage huts were always sealed, even though the weather was calm and no repairs were being done. She noticed small cameras high in the trees, far from guest areas, pointed at places where no one should need surveillance. At night, she sometimes heard faint mechanical sounds coming from underground areas near the back of the resort, almost like generators or machines running out of sight. Aisha tried to convince herself that she was simply unfamiliar with resort operations. She reminded herself that Noah had spent years building this place and might have rules to protect guests' privacy and safety. Still, the feeling that something was being hidden kept growing stronger. Whenever she mentioned certain spots she had explored during the day, Noah responded with an unusual stiffness, as though he didn't want her wandering too far from the main areas. One afternoon, Aisha walked past a maintenance building and noticed two workers whispering until they realized she was approaching. They froze and quickly walked away in opposite directions. Inside the half-open door, she noticed shelves filled with old equipment and stacks of seal boxes. Before she could step closer, another staff member rushed to close the door with a nervous expression. Aisha decided she couldn't ignore her instincts any longer. The island was too small, and the strange behavior too consistent to dismiss as coincidence. She began forming her own quiet investigation, choosing times when Noah was busy with meetings or attending to high-profile guests. She carried a small recording device hidden inside her clothes, originally purchased for her travel documentaries, but now repurposed for something far more serious. Every detail she noticed, strange noises, restricted rooms, shadowy corners, was described into the device in a calm, steady voice so she could review it later. During her morning filming routines, she acted cheerful and focused on capturing nature footage, but she used these outings to map the edges of the property. She found wires running beneath the sand near certain palm trees, far away from the resort buildings. When she followed one wire, it disappeared under a locked ground hatch. The hatch had no label except for a faded number. Aisha stepped back, pretending to take landscape shots as she quietly recorded the discovery. At night, she walked carefully around the resort, avoiding well-lit paths so staff wouldn't notice her wandering. She memorized their movement patterns and learned which areas they avoided completely. Whenever she found a structure that felt abandoned or suspicious, she documented it. She noticed that certain cameras pointed away from guest areas, almost as if they were monitoring hidden locations instead. Although her investigation was private, Aisha took precautions. She stored short summaries of her findings on her laptop and backed up some files to an online folder accessible only through a password. She believed she was being cautious, but she didn't consider the possibility that Noah had deeper control over the island's systems than she understood. Still, her determination grew stronger. Each new clue added weight to a feeling she could no longer ignore. The resort held secrets connected. Aisha's investigation began shifting from mild curiosity to genuine alarm as she uncovered patterns that connected the present to a disturbing past. While searching for information about the island, she dug through digital archives and old tourist forums, hoping to find harmless stories or forgotten travel blogs. Instead, she stumbled across scattered complaints from former visitors who mentioned unusual experiences that never made it into official reviews. Some guests claimed their private conversations had somehow become public. Others hinted at personal details being leaked shortly after their stay, though none had enough proof to press charges. The posts were vague, fragmented, and often deleted soon after being uploaded, yet they formed a trail that pointed towards something larger. Aisha went deeper, accessing historical records about the resort's construction. She discovered that Noah's father, who had built the facility decades ago, had been investigated quietly for questionable activities involving unauthorized monitoring. Although no charges had been made, the reports mentioned confidential testimonies and concerns raised by former employees. The investigation had ended abruptly after his unexpected death, leaving the case unresolved. Aisha realized that the silence surrounding the resort was not new. It had existed long before she arrived. She returned to the restricted areas she had mapped earlier and began examining them with more focus. The discolored signs, old wires, and locked underground hatches all seemed connected. She recorded descriptions of every discovery, noting the similarities between the equipment she found and the complaints she read online. The idea that Noah might have inherited not just the resort, but also the hidden systems his father built, slowly took shape in her mind. Her recorder filled with detailed notes, unexplained storage rooms packed with outdated electronics, servers humming in places that shouldn't have required power. Noah began noticing subtle changes in Aisha's routine. She moved with more purpose, stayed up late reviewing her footage, and wandered farther from the main resort areas than before. Her questions to staff became more pointed, and although she tried to hide her concern, Noah sensed that she was no longer simply exploring the island. He watched her closely, reading every shift in her behavior. The calm, relaxed life he once shared with her now felt strained, as though Aisha was carrying a secret she hadn't revealed. One afternoon, while sorting laundry that had been delivered from their villa, Noah found a small device tucked deep inside one of Aisha's shirts. At first, he assumed it was part of her filming equipment, but the moment he connected it to his computer, the truth unfolded. The device contained recordings, Hours of carefully documented observations about restricted rooms, unusual staff behavior, old equipment she had discovered, and suspicions about illegal monitoring systems. She spoke clearly, outlining each clue as if preparing evidence for outsiders. Noah scrolled through the files, and the deeper he went, the more panicked he became. Aisha had connected his father's past investigations to structures around the resort. She had uncovered hidden servers and suggested the possibility of a long-term surveillance network. She even recorded her belief that Noah was continuing operations she didn't fully understand. To Noah, this wasn't just curiosity. It was a threat capable of destroying everything he had built. As he listened, he realized she had gathered far more knowledge than he initially suspected. The device held enough information to trigger a full-scale investigation, one that could collapse the resort, attract international attention, and expose long-buried secrets Noah thought were safely hidden. Fear overtook him as he imagined the consequences. The loss of his business, public scandal, legal charges, and the possibility of his father's legacy. Noah spent the next hours pacing through his private office, replaying the recordings he had found. Each file felt like a countdown to disaster. Aisha's calm explanations of underground rooms, silent staff, and hidden servers left him feeling exposed in a way he had never experienced. He realized she had been gathering evidence for weeks, quietly building a picture of the resort's secret systems. The certainty in her voice made him believe she wasn't planning to stop. In his mind, her findings were not just observations. They were the beginning of a story that could ruin him. The resort depended on secrecy. High-profile guests chose the island because it offered complete privacy, something Noah had promised from the moment he took ownership. If authorities uncovered old surveillance operations, Noah feared it would trigger investigations not only into his father's past, but also into his own role in maintaining the island systems. Even if he denied everything, the evidence Aisha collected would be enough to cast doubt on him. He imagined police teams searching every corner of the island, journalists swarming the docks, and international agencies demanding answers. Noah convinced himself that Aisha had crossed a line. Instead of trusting him, she had gone behind his back, gathering information that could destroy the empire he spent years perfecting. He viewed her not as a partner, but as a risk that needed to be removed before the damage spread beyond control. The more he considered the consequences, the more he felt he had no choice. He began planning carefully. He studied the areas of the island where natural currents were strongest. He monitored staff schedules to choose a time when no one would be nearby. He rehearsed explanations in his mind, imagining how he would present the situation as a tragic accident. By the time night fell, Noah had convinced himself that eliminating Aisha was necessary to protect both his business and his father's legacy. Noah carried out his plan with a precision that came from years of managing every detail of the resort. On the night he chose, the island was unusually quiet. Most guests had retired early after a long day of excursions, and the staff had finished their shifts. The timing worked perfectly in his favor. Before anyone noticed Aisha's absence, he staged the area near the lagoon to create the impression of a late-night swim. He placed her sandals near the edge of the water and arranged her shawl on a nearby rock, as if she had taken it off moments before entering the sea. The tide was strong that night, and Noah depended on the currents to carry away anything that could contradict the story he planned to give. He wiped surfaces where she had walked and deleted several hours of security footage from the resort's internal system. He believed these steps were enough to erase her movements for the evening. Early the next morning, he announced to the staff that Aisha had gone missing. His tone remained controlled, but his explanation contained small inconsistencies that some employees quietly noticed. Nevertheless, their fear of losing their jobs kept them silent. Noah filed an official missing person report only after waiting long enough to make it seem like he was unsure whether she had left for a walk or gone swimming alone. Investigators arrived and questioned him, but Noah relied on his practice story. He described finding her belongings by the shore and suggested she might have been caught by an unexpected wave. He emphasized the dangerous currents, pointing to the lagoon as the likely place of the accident. For a moment, it appeared that his narrative might hold. However, Small flaws in Noah's plan began to surface. One employee remembered hearing mechanical noises late at night near the maintenance area Noah had visited. Another recalled seeing him walking toward the restricted side of the island at an hour he rarely left his villa. Meanwhile, Aisha's cloud SD. Investigators widened their search the moment Aisha's family shared her cloud recordings with authorities. The audio files revealed exact details about hidden equipment, suspicious areas, and the strange behavior she had documented. Each clip provided a clearer picture of the resort's secret history, and the investigators used her descriptions to locate the places she had mentioned. They discovered several locked structures that matched her recordings, including underground rooms with outdated electronics and abandoned storage filled with damaged surveillance devices. These findings weakened Noah's claim that the island had nothing unusual beneath its surface. Forensic teams examined the shoreline where Noah had staged the disappearance. They noticed inconsistencies that suggested the scene had been arranged. The placement of Aisha's belongings did not match natural tide patterns, and the timing Noah provided did not align with tidal data. Marks in the sand indicated that items had been set down deliberately rather than dropped in haste. Divers searched the lagoon and found no signs that Aisha had entered the water there, raising further doubts about Noah's version of events. Digital specialists then focused on the resort servers. Even though Noah had deleted hours of footage, fragments remained in the system, revealing unusual gaps that pointed to manual tampering. They also recovered old files tied to the previous owner's operations, confirming that hidden monitoring structures had existed and suggesting that someone had continued maintaining them. This discovery placed Noah at the center of a long-running pattern that he could no longer deny. As pressure intensified, Noah attempted to flee the island during a storm, believing the weather would cover his escape. He boarded a small private boat and sped toward open waters, but local maritime patrol intercepted him before he could reach international territory. His arrest made headlines across the region.